Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Maria here. Today in this video, we will cover the topic induction of labor. What is meant by induction of labor? Induction of labor is defined as the artificial initiation of labor. Means just you have to start the labor. So it is a process in which artificially you have to start the labor. Right? So initiation of labor and augmentation of labor are two terms. In initiation of labor, we give the medicines or we do the procedures which just start the labor. But in augmentation of labor, we speed up the labor which has started before. Now, in order to understand that how we can do the artificial initiation of labor or how we can do the induction of labor, we should know that how naturally it occurs. So if we know the natural mechanism of initiation of labor, it would be easy for us to memorize this topic and to crack this topic. So the things I am going to tell you are the important to understand the mechanism of action of drugs and different procedures we use for the initiation of labor or for the induction of labor. For example, the reproductive cycle of a female is of 28 days, as generally we take reproductive cycle of 28 days. Then what will happen? On the first day of last menstrual cycle, a follicle will start growing, and on 14th of cycle there will be ovulation. If the sperm is present, after ovulation there will be fertilization, and after fertilization there will be implantation. So the embryo will implant and it will turn into the fetus and fetus will start growing. So up to till 7th month of pregnancy, what happens? First we will look that, right? So from the first day of last menstrual cycle till the 14th of the cycle, there is a high level of estrogen in the blood. Remember, after ovulation till 7th month of pregnancy, there is a high level of progesterone in the body as compared to estrogen. It means that it shows that progesterone is the main hormone which maintains the pregnancy, which is important for the pregnancy, right? So note down here, the progesterone is the main hormone which maintains the pregnancy. How progesterone acts on the uterus? Progesterone basically acts on receptors and make the uterus relax. How it happens? First of all, progesterone acts on the endometrium during the luteal phase and forms the decidua. What is decidua? It is the modified endometrium which is important for the nourishment and the growth of the growing fetus. So here is the modified endometrium which is formed under the influence of progesterone, and progesterone inhibits the action of estrogen, right? And we will study later that what are the actions of the estrogen which are inhibited by the progesterone. Number third, progesterone inhibits the release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland, and we know that oxytocin is important for the contraction of the uterus. So it inhibits the release of oxytocin. And progesterone acts on the myometrium. And what is the function of progesterone on the myometrium? That it does not allow the formation of gap junctions. What are the gap junctions? It is the protein channels that connect the cytoplasm of one cell with the cytoplasm of the other cell. So when there will be no formation of the gap junctions, the myometrium will not act as a unit. When it will not act as a unit, there will be no contraction, right? Because uterus contract as a unit. And how it contract as a unit? First there will be formation of the gap junctions. Then if there's a contraction in this cell, it will propagate to the other cell. But if there is no formation of gap junction, there will be no propagation of the contraction. If this cell will stimulate, it will not transmit its stimulation to the next cell because there is no gap junction. So mostly the gap junctions are not present in the early pregnancy before the 7th month of pregnancy because these gap junctions are not present. And why they are not present? Due to the progesterone. So in this way, progesterone relaxes the uterus in order that the growing fetus should grow. What happens after the 7th month of pregnancy? After the 7th month of pregnancy, there is a high level of estrogen as compared to progesterone. Before the 7th month of pregnancy, there is a high level of progesterone as compared to estrogen. But after the 7th month of pregnancy, there is a high level of estrogen as compared to progesterone. So we can say that estrogen-progesterone ratio increases. And how it happens? In later pregnancy, the hypothalamus of the fetus will release corticotropin releasing hormone that will act on anterior pituitary gland, due to which there will be release of adrenocorticotropin hormone. This adrenocorticotropin hormone will act on adrenal gland, and due to its action there will be release of cortisol and there will be release of dihydroepiandrosterone. Now, what is the function of cortisol? Cortisol helps in the formation of placental oxytocin and prostaglandins, and dihydroepiandrosterone helps the formation of estrogen. So in later pregnancy, there is more formation of oxytocin, prostaglandins and estrogen. It means that these three hormones are important for parturition, or these three hormones actually prepare the body for labor. First, make this concept. Now, what is the function of estrogen? Why the level of estrogen increases after 7th month of pregnancy? Because estrogen acts on the uterus and makes the oxytocin receptors. Because in early pregnancy, there are no receptors of oxytocin on the myometrium of the uterus. And in non-pregnant female, there are no oxytocin receptors present. So estrogen forms the oxytocin receptors on the myometrium of the uterus, so later oxytocin can act on it. Because for the action of the oxytocin, either it is coming from the placenta or either it is coming from the posterior pituitary gland, it is important that the receptors of oxytocin should be present in the uterus for the functioning of oxytocin. So it is a door for oxytocin. If this door will present, oxytocin will enter and perform its function, right? Number second, as we know that prostaglandin receptors are present in the uterus, but estrogen makes more receptors of the prostaglandin in the uterus. So due to the estrogen, uterus becomes more sensitive, or there will be more formation of prostaglandin receptors. Number third important function is the formation of the gap junctions. As I have told you earlier that the progesterone inhibits the formation of gap junctions, but due to the influence of estrogen, there will be the formation of gap junctions. And these gap junctions connects the myocytes of the uterus so they can act as a single unit. First, the upper segment of uterus will contract, and this contraction will propagate to the lower segment, and then the lower segment will contract. And how it happens? It happens with the help of gap junctions. So gap junctions are important. We have studied before that progesterone inhibits the action of estrogen. How it inhibits the action of estrogen? It does not allow the formation of oxytocin receptors. It does not allow the formation of gap junctions, which is important for the initiation of labor. Now, what is the function of prostaglandins? As this hormone is important for the initiation of labor, we should know its mechanism of action. Cervix consists of myocytes and the fibroblasts, which are separated from each other by the extracellular matrix. Just remember the name of elastin, collagen, and dermatan sulfate. Now, under the influence of prostaglandins, there is increased proteolytic activity in the cervix, due to which there is a reduction in the collagen and the elastin. So remember this first point, that there is increased proteolytic activity, especially under the influence of the prostaglandins, due to which there is a reduction in the extracellular matrix. Number second, dermatan sulfate converts into hydrophilic hyaluronic acid, and due to increased content of hydrophilic hyaluronic acid, there is increased water content of the cervix. So when there is increased proteolytic activity of the cervix, there is decreased extracellular matrix, and when there is increased water content in the cervix, we say that cervix is soft or cervix is ripe. So there will be ripening or softening of the cervix due to increased water content in the cervix and due to reduction in extracellular matrix, due to which any contraction in the uterus will bring the change in the cervix. As before, the cervix was full length, it was closed and firm. But after the softening or ripening of the cervix, if there is a contraction in the upper part of the uterus, it will propagate to the lower part of the uterus and will cause effacement of the cervix. Mean it will pull up the cervix because it is soft now, and then there will be dilatation. Now what is the action of oxytocin? Oxytocin acts on its receptors which are present on the myometrium. Before 7 months of pregnancy, they are not present, and oxytocin receptors are not present in a non-pregnant uterus. But after 7 months of pregnancy, oxytocin receptors start forming. And what is the function of oxytocin? Oxytocin will act on its receptors which are present on myocytes, and myocytes are present in the myometrium, right? So, and these receptors are GQ linked, right? As this is not a pharmacological lecture, so just remember the name of door through which oxytocin enters, that is the GQ linked. So this receptor is GQ linked. The oxytocin will attach or bind with this receptor, right? And after attaching or binding to this receptor, it will give order to the cell to form IP3 and DAG. So there will be formation of IP3 and DAG, and due to which there will be influx of calcium. So there will be high level of calcium in the cell, and due to high level of calcium in the cell, there will be the contraction of myocytes. So oxytocin causes contraction of myocytes as gap junctions are formed by the estrogen, and the contraction is mainly caused by the oxytocin. So first, the upper segment of the uterus will contract, and then the lower segment of the uterus will contract. And when lower segment of the uterus will contract, the upper segment of the uterus will relax. So in this way, there will be the contraction of the uterus mainly with the help of oxytocin. So main hormone which causes the softening of cervix is the prostaglandin, and the main hormone which causes the contraction of myocytes or the contraction of the uterus is the oxytocin, right? Now I will tell you the important points which are very important to understand the mechanism of induction of labor. Actually, these points are very important to understanding the whole pregnancy. What normally happens in the early pregnancy, due to the progesterone receptors, there will be the relaxation of uterus, as I have told you earlier, right? And nature has made beta-2 agonist receptors, which are the sympathomimetic receptors on the uterus. As we know that sympathomimetic receptors are the receptors of fight and flight. Nature has made beta-2 agonist receptors on the uterus. Why? Because due to anxiety or depression, due to the situation of fight and flight, when female is nervous, there will be activation of beta-2 agonist receptors. And what will be the effect of beta-2 agonist receptors? Whenever we stimulate beta-2 agonist receptors, there will be relaxation of uterine muscles, right? So just remember how you can remember with the help of a trick or mnemonic that uterus has 2 ovaries, it has 2 fallopian tubes. So here is the word 2, right? Which mean bi. So you can remember that normally B2 receptors are present on the uterus, right? And if I draw this B 2 times, one like this and one like this, So if I draw two bees, there is the shape of a butterfly, and in order to fly the butterfly, there must be a more space. And when there will be more space, when there will be relaxation. So just remember, normally the nature has made beta 2 receptors, beta 2 sympathomimetic receptors in the uterus, so that there will be relaxation of the uterine muscles when the pregnant lady is nervous, when she is in situation of fight and flight. So in case of any stress, there will be no contraction in the uterine muscles, because due to the presence of beta 2 agonist receptors. So you can look at how nature is kind to us, right? Now, after 7 months of pregnancy, there will be formation of oxytocin receptors in the uterus, and oxytocins cause contraction of the myometrium, so it causes the contraction, right? And the prostaglandins, which are present all the time, but after 7 months of pregnancy, the uterus become more sensitive to the prostaglandins, and what they do, they cause the contraction of the myometrium, as well as they cause the softening and ripening of the cervix. This ripening and softening of the cervix is very important, because after this softening and ripening, any contraction in the uterus will pull the cervix upward, will cause its effacement. And after and with effacement, there will be dilation of the cervix. So you can look that the prostaglandins cause the softening of the cervix, and they cause the contraction of myometrium. Oxytocin causes the contraction of myometrium. Progesterone relaxes the uterus and maintains the endometrium. Beta 2 agonist relaxes the uterus. If you know these characters, you can easily tell which drug is the best drug in which situation. For example, you know that when labor starts, naturally there is a softening of the cervix, because after the softening of cervix, if there will be contraction in the body of the uterus, it will pull the cervix upward and it will cause its dilation, right? So it means that prostaglandin is important for the initiation of labor, and for proper contraction of uterus, oxytocin is important, right? So this was the main concept. If you want to initiate the labor, which will be the best drug? Prostaglandins will be the best drug, because they cause the softening of the cervix. When it will be soft, then the contractions in the uterus will bring the change and will cause the effacement and dilation of cervix. Without its effacement and dilation, there will be no delivery of the fetus. For example, if cervix of a pregnant lady is not ripe and you have given her oxytocin, there will be more contraction of the myometrium, but that will not bring change on the cervix, and the uterus will go under hyperstimulation, there will be more contraction and there can be uterine rupture. So drug of choice for the induction of labor is the prostaglandins. Now, there are two types of prostaglandins which are important for the induction of labor: prostaglandin E2 and prostaglandin E1. Prostaglandin E2 is the drug of choice for the induction of labor. Remember this thing. How you can remember? As I have told you, here the word is E2. So uterus has two structures mostly, the two ovaries, two fallopian tubes. So remember E2, right? Now, so synthetic prostaglandin E2 is dinoprostone, right? And the synthetic prostaglandin E1 is misoprostol, right? Now, we can also stop the pregnancy, we can start the labor if we give a drug which has opposite effect as of progesterone. So you can give anti-progesterone drug, that is the mifepristone. So if you will give mifepristone, it will act in opposite fashion of the progesterone. So it will block the receptors of the progesterone. It will not support the endometrium, and endometrium will start shedding. And as progesterone causes the relaxation of uterine muscles, mifepristone will cause contractions. So you can also give mifepristone to stop the pregnancy and to start the labor. So just write down here, according to the recent guidelines, the mifepristone and the misoprostol you can give only in the induction of labor when there is IUD, mean intrauterine death. When there is a fetal demise, you can give misoprostol plus mifepristone in that case only, right? If the baby is alive, never ever give mifepristone and misoprostol in that pregnant lady. It is not recommended. Now, first remember, you have to give prostaglandins, that is the drug of choice for the induction of labor, that is prostaglandin E2. And remember, if in any scenario it is written that a primary gravida came to you at 40 weeks of gestation and she wants induction of labor, or you want to give induction of labor and cervix is unripe, in that condition you will give prostaglandin E2. And if the cervix is ripe, again you will give prostaglandin E2. It's a drug of choice. Number second thing, how you can induce the induction. You can induce the induction by artificial rupturing of membranes, that is called ARM. But always remember, when you are going to do ARM, artificial rupturing of membranes, the cervix should be soft, effaced and dilated, mean the cervix should be favorable. And how you will know the cervix is favorable or not? With the help of Bishop scoring, right? What is Bishop scoring? I have made another video, the link is present in the description box. So first of all, look, either cervix is favorable or not. If it will be favorable, mean Bishop score is more than 8, then you can do ARM. It is according to the guidelines that cervix should be favorable, right? When you have ruptured the membranes, then you can give oxytocin. It is up to you. You want to give oxytocin or not along with the rupturing of membrane. For induction of labor, you can first give prostaglandins, and for continuation of this induction of labor, you can do ARM. And along with ARM, you can give oxytocin. But normally it is not recommended. You can do ARM only when cervix is ripe. So when you will artificially rupture the membranes, in the fetal membranes and in the amniotic fluid, there is the presence of prostaglandins. Natural prostaglandins will release and that will cause irritation to the myometrium and they will cause the uterine contractions. Remember that when you do ARM, when cervix is not ripe, suddenly the prostaglandins cannot come to ripen the cervix. So it is recommended first ripe or soft the cervix. Right? What other methods you can apply for the initiation of labor? That are the mechanical methods. Mean, as you know that the baby is present in the amniotic cavity, right? This is the amniotic cavity and the baby is surrounded by the fetal membranes. So these are the fetal membranes. So what you have to do, you have to put a Foley's, right, in the extra amniotic cavity, which is outside the amniotic cavity. In this space, or you can say that in the cervix, you have to place a Foley's and then you have to inflate it, right? When the balloon will dilate, it will exert the mechanical pressure on the cervix. Due to this mechanical pressure exertion on the cervix, there will be ripening of the cervix. Due to this Foley's, slowly the cervix will ripen, and due to this mechanical effect, there will be more release of the oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland, right? How the oxytocins will release from the posterior pituitary gland, as that happens in case of Ferguson reflex. And what is the Ferguson reflex? I have told in another video, the link is present in the description box, right? Now, another method that you can do is a membrane sweeping, and it is the best natural method. For example, after 40 completed weeks of pregnancy, a pregnant lady come to you and she does not want the medical induction, right? She want the natural induction of labor. Don't ask her to drink castor oil, right? You can offer the natural method, that is the membrane sweeping. And what you have to do, you just have to separate the fetal membranes from the underlying endometrium, which is the decidua. When with the gloved fingers you separate the fetal membranes from the decidual membranes, there will be the irritation of the cells of the fetal membrane and the decidual membrane, and there will be release of the natural prostaglandins. So offer this procedure to a pregnant lady weekly after 40 weeks of pregnancy, right? And that will cause natural initiation of labor. In a nutshell, this slide is actually your whole topic. And why I have talked about beta 2 agonist here, because what is the side effect of induction of labor? If we use non-natural methods, there can be the hyperstimulation of the uterus. If there are more than 5 uterine contractions per 10 minutes, it means that there is the hyperstimulation of the uterine contraction. So in this case, what you will do, you have to relax the uterus. Otherwise, what is the most complication? There can be fetal distress, because after contraction there is normally relaxation, and due to that relaxation the baby gets blood, right? But if there is more contractions, there will be less relaxation, and when there will be no relaxation, the fetus will not able to get the blood. Why? Because due to the contraction of the placental bed. So we don't want hyperstimulation, because hyperstimulation can cause fetal distress and with abnormal fetal heart rates, and it can cause uterine rupture. So in that emergency, you have to relax the uterus. You have to give beta 2 agonist. That is very, very important thing. And when you will give beta 2 agonist, you give terbutaline in such pregnant lady that will act on these receptors, on beta 2 agonist receptors, and will cause uterine relaxation, right? That was the general concept.